South Korea's top court orders a Japanese firm to compensate 4 South Koreans for wartime forced labor and unpaid work. The ruling provides effective closure to a case that began more than a decade ago. Perhaps with an eye on the midterms and energizing his base, US President Donald Trump says he's considering removing the right to citizenship for babies of non-citizens and undocumented immigrants who are born on US soil. Plus, the deadly power of nature. Intense storms and pounding torrential rain in Italy leaves more than 10 people dead. An estimated 1.2 million Koreans are forced to work in Japanese industries with little or no pay during Japan's brutal colonial rule of Korea. Now, after more than 70 years, some of the victims may finally receive a long overdue apology and reparations. After 13 years of numerous trials and appeals, South Korea's top court on Tuesday announced its final ruling. EG1 starts us off.
South Korea's Supreme Court has decided to uphold a ruling ordering a Japanese steelmaker to pay compensation to 4 Koreans, the company forced to work for it during World War II, when the Korean peninsula was under Japanese colonial rule. Nippon Steel and Sumitomo Metal Corporation will be required to pay each victim around $87,000 for unpaid work. In its decision Tuesday, the Supreme Court said that a 1965 agreement between Korea and Japan did not terminate the right of individuals to reparations. The Japanese government has been arguing that the agreement concerning the settlement of problems in regard to property and claims and economic cooperation draws a line under the two countries' history. In efforts to normalize diplomatic relations with Seoul, Tokyo paid South Korea $500 million. Seoul's top court also took issue with the Japanese court's 2003 ruling that claimed colonization is not illegal and that the use of forced labor was not illegal either at the time. Those notions, the Supreme Court said, go against constitutional values. The Japanese firm had argued that legally too much time has gone by and that it is no longer responsible, but the court called the claim an abuse of rights and a violation of the principle of good faith. To the ruling, Japanese Foreign Minister Taro Kono released a statement expressing deep regret. The ruling is unacceptable, he said, because it fundamentally shakes up the legislative grounds of Seoul-Tokyo ties. He also strongly urged the South Korean government to immediately take appropriate measures, or Japan will do all it can, including an international trial, to defend what he called the Japanese firm's legal economic activities. South Korea, right after the ruling was announced, held a meeting between related ministries and the Prime Minister, where they said the government respects the court's ruling. They also unveiled plans to form a group of experts and officials to form the government's overall response to the ruling and said that they hope to develop future-oriented Seoul-Tokyo ties. It's expected to be a rough patch for the two countries, but a Japan expert says it could help if the two sides can see eye to eye on their previous agreement.
Yes, part of the money given to South Korea back in 1965 was for the victims of forced labor, but the money was not legal compensation. It was simply part of the money given to South Korea to establish ties and economic cooperation. Thus, because South Korea sees the whole colonization as illegal, the court decided that legal compensation should be given to the victims. If that difference can be reconciled with Japan's point of view, their ties may not become so frosty.
Though only one of the 4 plaintiffs is still alive, there is hope that this could positively affect many other ongoing and potential trials involving Japanese firms and formerly enslaved Korean workers. 이지원, Arirang News.
The defense ministers of South Korea and the United States will hold the 50th Security Consultative meeting in Washington on Wednesday local time to discuss extensive security issues, including the transfer of wartime operational control. During the annual talks, the two allies are expected to agree on a specific roadmap for a future combined command structure. Under the new structure, Seoul is expected to assume the commander's role while Washington serves as deputy. replacing the current US-led Combined Forces Command. Also on their agenda is the suspension of a massive joint air exercise, which has been held annually in a show of force against North Korea. US nuclear envoy Stephen Biegun held more meetings with top officials here in Seoul on Tuesday. During talks with South Korea's unification minister, he's believed to have discussed inter-Korean economic cooperation and sanctions on Pyongyang. Oh Jung-hee with the details.
Washington's nuclear envoy continued a series of meetings with key figures in Seoul. U.S. Special Representative for North Korea Stephen Biegun met on Tuesday with the Minister of Unification, Cho Myung-kyun.
It's a very critical moment right now. We'll be talking about how to keep inter-Korean relations and North Korea-U.S. relations in step with each other, so our discussion today is important.
We want the same thing for the Korean Peninsula, peace and stability, primarily through the denuclearization of North Korea. Within that, there are many initiatives that we can cooperate on, and we look forward to working closely with your ministry on those.
The main issues expected to happen on the table are inter-Korean economic cooperation and international sanctions on North Korea. At the Inter-Korean Summit in September and the following high-level talks, the two Koreas have set up several cooperation plans, which include joint inspections of railroads and upgrading tree nurseries in North Korea. Seoul believes that inter-Korean cooperation can push the North towards denuclearization and is therefore expected to have asked Washington to grant exemptions to sanctions. But the U.S. is firm about keeping the sanctions in place until North Korea denuclearizes. In fact, President Trump now says it doesn't matter how long that process takes, as long as there aren't any nuclear tests. Also expected to happen covered is the dialogue between Pyongyang and Washington on holding high-level and working-level talks. It's known that North Korea has not been responding to U.S. proposals for talks, and it remains a question whether there will be any major breakthrough in their negotiations until the U.S. midterms early next month. Washington's nuclear envoy also met Tuesday with Seoul's National Security Advisor Chung Eui-yong. They discussed how Washington is preparing for the second North Korea-U.S. summit and agreed to pursue peace on the Korean Peninsula based on a solid South Korea-U.S. alliance. The day before, Biegun met Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa, Seoul's own nuclear envoy Lee Do-hoon, and the Presidential Chief of Staff Im Jong-seok. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
Now, after weeks of speculation, it finally seems as though US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo will likely meet his North Korean counterpart in New York next week to continue discussions on a potential second summit between their leaders. Lee-seung Jae with the details.
With the highly anticipated second summit between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and US President Donald Trump set to take place in the near future, the top U.S. diplomat, Mike Pompeo, is due to meet with his North Korean counterpart sometime next week in New York. According to multiple diplomatic sources in Seoul and Washington, the high-level talks are being planned for around November 9th after the U.S. midterm elections and ahead of President Trump's trip to France. While it's still unclear which North Korean official will meet with Pompeo, sources say Kim Young-chul, a top aide to the North Korean leader, appears most likely. Kim Young-chul and Pompeo previously met in New York in May after Trump called off the first planned summit with the North Korean leader. That meeting, along with Kim Young-chul's visit to the White House, led to the historic first summit between the leaders of North Korea and the U.S. on June 12th in Singapore. Hopes are high that the planned meeting between Pompeo and his North Korean counterpart will give everyone a clearer picture on when and where the next Pyongyang-Washington summit will be. This comes as U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton said earlier this month that the second summit will likely happen early next year. As Kim Jong-un committed to work toward the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula at the first summit, sources say the second summit could lead to discussions in ways to realize Pyongyang's stated commitment, including the North Korean leader's invitation of international inspectors to the regime's nuclear testing site in Punggye-ri. Lee-seung Jae, Arirang News.
Now, heating up his hardline rhetoric on immigration, US President Donald Trump claims he can end birthright citizenship. Such remarks coming less than a week before these crucial midterm elections are expected to spark a constitutional debate in America, as any such move would defy the US Constitution. Our Kim Hyo-sun tells us more.
President Trump says he could end birthright citizenship. In an exclusive interview with HBO and an American online media outlet, Axios, Trump explained that his administration is mulling an executive order that would remove the right to citizenship for babies of non-citizens and undocumented immigrants who are born on U.S. soil.
Yes, we're the only country in the world where a person comes in, has a baby, and the baby is essentially a citizen of the United States for 85 years with all of those benefits. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it has to end.
Such remarks are expected to set up a constitutional battle on whether the president can terminate with an executive order the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, which stipulates that all persons born or naturalized in the U.S. are citizens of the country. Yet with the midterm elections coming up in less than a week, his remarks are seen as a way of garnering votes from supporters of his hardline policies on immigration. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Samsung Electronics released its finalized third quarter earnings report on Wednesday and made for nice reading. The South Korean smartphone and chip maker says it posted record operating profits during the July to September period at more than $15.4 billion, a near 21% jump from the same period last year. The report also says Samsung Electronics recorded sales of $57.5 billion, up 5.5% on year. South Korea's overall industrial output inched down last month, mainly due to a fall in auto production. According to Statistics Korea on Wednesday, industrial output in September decreased by 1.3% from the previous month. The agency said less production in the mining and manufacturing industries caused the downfall. Auto production in particular fell by almost 5% due to lower domestic demand. By way of contrast, equipment investment that rebounded in September, gaining 3% after falling for the 6th consecutive month in August. This rebound was mainly due to increased investment in semiconductor manufacturing equipment. Today is Halloween, August 31st, so that means tomorrow is the first day of November. And November is a month typically known here in Korea for the college entrance exam, the colder weather, and making kimchi. But since it's not that long ago, November has also become synonymous with online shopping, as major online shopping malls kick off their biggest sales event of the year in November. Our Hong Yu with the details.
Korea's largest online shopping malls are holding their biggest sales event of the year starting today. Previously considered an off-season month in terms of sales and revenue in the past, November is in the spotlight for being one of the best months to attract shoppers in and out of the country. Amid the increasing popularity and dominance of major sales events overseas, such as Black Friday in North America and Singles' Day in China, major Korean online retailers have come up with their own special promotions. One of Korea's biggest online shopping mall, 11th Street, made more than $56 million just in one day on November 11th last year through its discount event known as the 11th Festival. The same event is planned for this year as well.
Electronic devices and home appliances like TVs were the most popular items sold last year. We have analyzed customer shopping patterns based on their age and gender. With the results of our study, we plan on optimizing our product catalog to suit the preferences of our online customers.
This year, major names in the online shopping industry are targeting not only local customers but also foreign shoppers as well. G-Market, another household name in online shopping, is kicking off today its event called Mega G, which runs through November 11th. The company even has a dedicated platform called the G-Market Global Shop, which makes the purchase process much easier for foreign shoppers.
Our platform is provided in 4 different languages, namely Korean, English, Chinese, and Japanese. When foreigners purchase from abroad, they can use diverse types of credit cards and online payment methods such as Alipay or PayPal, thus simplifying their shopping experience.
The worldwide popularity of K-pop was reflected on the hottest purchased items among foreigners. K-pop goods alone showed a sales increase of 77% on year.
With many sales events planned for November, the industry hopes that the month becomes a major shopping season in South Korea, just like Black Friday in the US and Singles' Day in China. Hong Yu, Arirang News.
Now, President Moon Jae-in's efforts to revive South Korea's regional economies has kicked off with a series of trips. On Tuesday, the president toured 2 regions in a day, one on the west and the other on the east, focusing on ways to boost the economy at the local level. Shin Se-min reports.
President Moon Jae-in sweeping from Korea's west to its east in a single day as he tries to boost regional economies that have fallen on hard times. Highlighting the importance of Korea's drive toward renewable energy, President Moon started the day at a ceremony in Saemangum, a coastal area in the city of Kunsan Jeollabuk-do province, where he unveiled his vision for a massive renewable energy cluster by 2022. The Saemangum cluster will contain 3 solar parks and a wind farm, producing a total of 4 gigawatts of power, the equivalent of 4 nuclear reactors.
이에 정부는 친환경 에너지 발굴 및 육성을 국정 100대 과제에 포함시키고 2030년까지 재생에너지 발전 비중을 20%로 확대하겠다는 재생에너지 3020 이행 계획을 발표했습니다.
The Saemangum cluster alone is set to attract around 100 renewable energy-related companies and create 100,000 jobs over the next decade. Attending a separate ceremony in Gyeongju, Gyeongsangbuk-do province, marking Local Autonomous Day, the president vowed to push forward with his administration's plan of boosting local government's autonomy and promised support for job policies.
정부는 지역 일자리 창출의 강력한 조력자가 되겠습니다. 지역의 현실을 가장 잘 아는 지자체가 맞춤형 일자리 정책을 세우고 추진하는데 제도적 재정적 뒷받침을 아끼지 않을 것입니다.
President Moon says it'll happen through a virtuous circle of talented individuals, investments, and jobs. In other words, backing local schools and universities to foster talent from the region. The president added his administration will work to boost the recruitment rate at public institutions in local areas to 30% by 2022 and will support mid-sized firms so they become the center of local development. He said efforts to decentralization will be possible even without the need for constitutional reform. The presidential office had previously come up with the government's proposal focused on upgrading local government's autonomy and economic democratization as part of its constitutional amendment bill earlier this year in March, which the National Assembly failed to pass. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, the natural beauty of South Korea's forest-coated mountains are the results of decades of careful management and reforestation programs. Experts from developing nations are here in Korea, in fact, to learn how the country looks after its forest resources. Kim Da-mi reports.
South Korea is one of only 4 countries with a successful history of forest rehabilitation following World War II. In order to learn from Korea's successful reforestation, foreign experts and researchers have gathered in Seoul for workshops and field trips. Korea's reforestation efforts date back to 1950s, when the government introduced the national forest plans and fast-growing trees were planted to prevent floods and erosion. In the early 1960s, about 56% of the country was covered by forest. Today, 64% is covered, an increase of 840,000 hectares. Nowadays, the focus has shifted from tree planting to sustainability. Korea's current sustainable forest management policy focuses on balance between forest utilization and preservation and aims at increasing the amount of natural recreational parks and forests. Not only are forests and recreational parks places for citizens to relax and enjoy nature, but they also create green job opportunities such as forest guides, tree surgeons, and researchers specializing in tree care.
For the first time, I'm seeing a forest hospital. I even haven't heard about it. And all the advancements that is happening, scientifically and technically has a lot to offer for many of the developing countries.
And I'm particularly very interested in how we can learn from your fire management techniques and see how that can be applied back at home, especially your wildfire management techniques.
Korea's extensive experience in reforestation and sustainable forest management will now help developing countries restore, protect, and utilize their own forest. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
Indonesia has ordered the inspection of all Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft following Monday's tragic crash of an Lion Air plane. Let's get more on this and other news from around the world from our Aram. So Aram, what's the latest?
Well, Mark, it's believed the Lion Air plane had suffered instrument problems on its previous flight. Now, an Indonesian safety official says among the issues was unreliable airspeed readings. There have also been reports from passengers on the previous flight that the plane felt as though it temporarily lost power and was unable to climb after takeoff. Luckily, that flight was able to land safely in Jakarta. However, Lion's CEO has said all technical issues were resolved before the Boeing 737 MAX 8 took off on Monday and that the aircraft was deemed airworthy. However, it did crash into the sea just minutes after takeoff, and all 189 passengers and crew on board flight JT610 are feared dead. Search and rescue efforts are still underway to find possible survivors. Officials are desperately trying also to locate the plane's black box in order to find out how an almost brand new aircraft plunged in the sea shortly after takeoff. On Tuesday, Indonesia's Transport Ministry said all MAX 8 aircraft belonging to local commercial airlines would be inspected, but it stopped short of grounding them. Lion Air said it will meet with a team from Boeing on Wednesday to discuss the incident. Boeing, meanwhile, has said it is ready to provide technical assistance to the accident investigation. The death toll from fierce storms battering Italy has risen to at least 11 now. Powerful winds of up to 180 kilometers an hour and heavy rain have already flooded almost two-thirds of Venice. The wild weather is not just affecting Italy, but other parts of Europe. Hundreds of thousands of homes in France are without power due to heavy snowfall. Mountainous regions in Italy, France, and also Switzerland are covered in thick snow, leaving hundreds of drivers and tourists stranded. Apple has given a much-needed update to its most popular laptop, the MacBook Air. It will feature a higher resolution display, thinner bezels, louder speakers, and Apple's Touch ID fingerprint scanner. Apple said the new laptop is also made from 100% recycled aluminium and is 10% thinner than the previous model. The US tech giant has also updated its iPad Pro tablet PC with thinner bezels and a few features found on the iPhone, such as facial recognition. Both products are set to hit shelves in the US next week and will be priced slightly higher than their respective predecessors.
Good morning. We'll have another very chilly day today, but daily highs will climb above 10 degrees Celsius here in the capital this afternoon. But if you plan to celebrate Halloween tonight, you'll want to bundle up tight. And we'll see clear sunny skies with more sunshine expected as the day goes on, with good air quality in most parts of the country. And as long as you wear a warm sweater or hooded jacket, it's one of the best times to explore and enjoy nature with cool, crisp weather. So be sure to take advantage. And today's highs will range between 13 and 17 degrees Celsius. Seoul will reach 13 degrees. Gyeongju and Busan will top out at 16 degrees this afternoon. Temperatures will return around seasonal averages on Friday afternoon, and gentle sunlight will continue for a while, but the air quality and air should also get drier. And beware of wide temperature differences and be sure to dress accordingly. That's Korea for you, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all we have for now on this Wednesday morning here in Seoul. Do stay tuned to Arirang TV. Plenty more coming up, including our next newscast at noon Korea time with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. She is back. Until then, goodbye.
Overseas TV Audience Survey. Arirang TV and Gallup Korea are conducting research on viewer opinions. Your honest answers will be used for the development of Arirang